Bread in the oven, bacon. Here comes a rude boy Jamaican. Bread in the oven, bacon. Here comes a rude boy Jamaican. Eat with me gun, sleep with me gun. The evil clean
Hello,
me,
fight
eat
fans.
with me gun.
It's Christmas
And
2020. I'm here to do our wrap-up show for boxing in 2020. And straight from London, I have with me again the barrister of boxing, Ben Doughty. And joining us later in the broadcast is my Jamaican brother, Master Knowledge, former boxer, promoter, broadcaster, Spencer Fearon. So hopefully Spencer will show up, or them saying that Jamaica, we might have to call some man from Grand Spin to go get him. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good, George. This is getting to be a habit. Almost feel like I live over there next to them Blue Horizon chairs nearly.
Yes, I love sitting in these chairs, Ben. So let's recap boxing, man. And I guess the logical place to start with the big guys.
Sure.
And let's discuss what happened. Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. That fight happened, and when was it? February 22nd.
22nd. That's it.
And Tyson Fury won by TKO in the 7th round. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it was a highly impressive job, George, because it was such a contrast to his approach in the first fight. Most people, and I know you do, think he won the first fight anyhow by boxing him, using his movement, not getting involved. The typical identikit logic when you're fighting a murderous puncher like Wilder. Whatever you think of Wilder, he can turn hard. He can punch hard enough to turn goat's piss into gasoline, as per the classic James Tillis quote about early shavers. So, you know, Tyson did what you thought you have to do. And when he started saying that he was going to be more aggressive in the rematch, and he supposedly retained a trainer who was more of that aggressive mindset and coaching kind of ethos in Sugar Hill Stewart. You know, I thought it was just typical Fury double talk. I thought it was misinformation because Tyson says a lot of things, and sometimes I think he doesn't even know what he's going to say until he says it. When actually he did everything he said he would do. He backed Wilder up, took his leverage away, and just beat him up, pressured him, and systematically beat him down, which I thought was highly impressive because Tyson had already showed he could outbox the guy and probably got kind of shafted the first time. And I was at that fight live at the Staples Center. To see him with a different kind of, side to his fistic personality and do a job like that, I thought it was very impressive.
I thought one shot changed the entire fight. You can't recover from that shot where he got hit high up on the head, busted his eardrum. His equilibrium was gone. So he was basically damaged good from the 2nd round on. Personally, I would have thrown in the towel about the 4th or 5th round because you can't recover from that shot. It's impossible. And he could have gotten seriously hurt had Breland not stopped that fight in the 7th round.
Sure, and you'll be well aware of the subtext that went on afterwards where he renounced Mark Breland and accused him of all manner of skullduggery and compromised position, when really, you know as well as I do, Mark, who was a fine fighter himself and is no doubt a fine coach, was just looking out for his man, and all he's received for it is, rancor.
I thought Mark Breland saved his career, really. Because had he been sent out there, I honestly believe he would have seriously gotten hurt by Tyson Fury. So Breland did the right thing, but he lost the job. But that's Mark could kick. I don't think Mark worried about that. He's an accomplished fighter, an accomplished trainer, gold medalist. He's probably forgotten more about boxing than Deontay Wilder will ever learn.
Yeah, and the other thing about Mark in terms of losing a job, Mark signed one of the smartest deals in boxing history, as far as I'm aware. When he turned pro, his deal with Main Events and Shelley Finkel was such that it was to guaranteeing him a sum of $100,000 every year of his life after the age of 31. It's called an annuity. And I remember seeing an interview with Mark several years ago, many years ago, in Boxing News, when he was retired and he was working with fighters like Jerson Rebello and stuff like that. And he said that I stay busy in the gym and it's some passion. He said, but whatever I do, my annuity kicks in every year, so I'm okay from that point of view.
Yeah, Ben, I heard the same story. I heard it was 150,000.
Sure, it's definitely at least 100 grand. And I mean, I don't quite know how that was possible, George. I don't know. In a business which is so kind of dog eat dog, I'm astonished that he was able to have such terms, but he did, and that's a fantastic thing. I don't know of any other fighter who's been guaranteed that kind of secure income when he retires.
But Mark was a superstar. He was in a movie before the Olympics. I mean, Mark Brilliant is just an exceptional person, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
I'd like to meet him, but I haven't met him yet. When I was showing Chris before you got here some of the illustrious, I was talking about some of the illustrious personages I have met. Some of the pictures are behind me, but I'd like to meet Mark, I must admit, because when I was a kid, that was a big deal when he won the Golden Gloves 4 times. They were covering that in England too, and that he was a sure hope for the Olympics. They put him on the cover of Ring magazine, and Randy Gordon said, "You'll probably ask him why an amateur on the cover of the Ring." He said, "Watch the Olympics, you'll find out why." So there was a big buzz around Breland, even in this country, So
yes, he was a celebrity as an amateur. Now let's move on to the next heavyweight. We know our man AJ got his title back from Ruiz in December 2019. He fought once this year, about a week ago. Yeah, and he won. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, AJ, interestingly, but I don't want to get sidetracked on this too much, George, but I do feel I have to mention that there was a major backlash in this country against Anthony Joshua, which really seemed to have legs, and it seemed to hang around for a while, back from the summer. I don't know if you were au fait with the story, but he spoke at the Black Lives Matter rally in Watford, which is his kind of native area, just about 25 miles from London, right? Maybe not even that far. So, and did you hear the story? He made a speech.
No, I heard part of it. I didn't get all the facts.
He made a speech, and bear in mind that we've only got a certain amount of time and we're going to talk about boxing, not politics, but just quickly, he made a speech, and at some point he read something that someone else had written as well that was being passed around or something. And obviously you say something and you're Anthony Joshua, you become it, you embody it, and people should know that. But one of the things he said, he spoke about the way we should unite and nobody should be victimized because of their color and creed and all that, and all the really fundamentally obvious humanitarian stuff that we should all hold dear, otherwise get the hell off the planet. But then he said, don't buy their consumer goods, don't shop in their shops, don't give them your business, don't give them your money. And people took that to mean rightly or wrongly white people, right? White corporates, the Caucasian power structure. So lots of people said, right, I'm no fan of his anymore. He doesn't mind advertising Hugo Boss. I mean, the trouble is he's a corporate billboard. That's the problem with that statement.
I've heard that.
But in any case, George, it's a complicated issue, and me, you, and Spencer could have a fascinating discussion about that in its own. But just to say, there was the backlash against him, and obviously he was coming into the ring in these strange times with the COVID situation, with only 1,000 fans in attendance, which was revolutionary enough as it was, given the summer we've had of boxing that started out in Eddie Hearn's back garden. And I think he needed to put on a good performance, and he needed to come over. He needed to remind people why he's famous in the first place, and to try and, put some of that stigma in the rearview mirror. And I think he did it. I think he looked pretty good against Pulev. I mean, people said he looked gun shy, and kind of leery, like he's worried about getting hit. But other people said, no, he's just gotten smarter. He's not going to let that happen again, because he got in trouble against Ruiz after he dropped Ruiz, right? Because he started to swing for the fences and got nailed himself. I thought he looked pretty good. I mean, I think he looks like a more mature fighter now. I mean, he's always been a great puncher and a good finisher. He looks like a little bit more savvy now. I like him a little bit lighter, so he's a bit more mobile. I still don't think he'd beat Tyson Fury. I never have thought that, as far as I can remember.
I thought he had a little ring rust. He looked good. He got some rounds in, and we'll agree to disagree, because I have Joshua knocking out Fury. Yeah, I don't see Fury beating. I don't see Fury beating Joshua. Really don't.
No, I'm totally the other way around on that, George. I can't see. I find it hard to picture Joshua beating Fury. I think if it becomes a dogfight, Fury wins. I think if Fury chooses to box and be awkward, then I think he can frustrate Joshua. I think he hits hard enough to put Joshua in trouble, to bust him up a little bit. I think he's smarter. I think he's the sturdier. And I think he's also more, I was about to say, what I was about to say? He's more of a child of destiny, because I remember Bob Arum once said that Oscar De La Hoya was a child of destiny and you don't want to mess with those. But having said that, Anthony Joshua is a bit of a child of destiny too, isn't he? And Spencer always tells me his name is Anthony Joshua, which in itself means he is born special. So I would, just as I'm saying he's more of a child of destiny, and the idea that he's got more stardust attached to him, I'm not sure about that, actually. Maybe they're about even, maybe they're...
And that's why we need to see the fight, because Ben, most things we agree on, but we're split on Joshua versus Fury.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are. And
yeah,
that's what makes it such an intriguing fight.
Over here, most people fancy Fury. Most of the boxing people that I talk to, although, I mean, I don't troll the forum because, as you know, they're mostly full of idiots and people who certainly full of the spelling mistakes and grammatical atrocities that you picked up on only last night. So, but the people who are in my loop of social media, certainly in this country, seem to favour Fury in that fight. But there are...
I'm betting my house on AJ, Anthony Joshua.
Yeah. Well,
and I don't plan on being homeless, Ben.
No, okay. Well, let's maybe.
But that fight has to happen in 2021. And if Eddie Hearn is watching, we don't want to hear it's going to Saudi Arabia. It needs to be in Wembley Stadium. And if it happens somewhere else, I don't believe the British fans or the people of Great Britain should let Eddie Hearn back into the country if that fight doesn't take place in Great Britain.
Do you know something? When you upload this to YouTube, that's the caption I'm putting on it.
Yes.
And maybe you should, that's what I put on my social media, but maybe you should put it to George Hanson Jr., speech marks, semicolon, speech marks. If Eddie Hearn lets Fury Joshua go to Saudi Arabia, he should not be allowed back into
He shouldn't be allowed. And I'm a huge Eddie Hearn fan.
Yeah.
I like Eddie.
Yeah, you've met him.
His knowledge of boxing, yeah. I met him. Great guy. But I understand you can make more money in Saudi Arabia.
We got Spencer. Is Spencer in the house?
That fight belongs in the UK.
Yeah.
Is Spencer coming on?
He's here. He just joined.
Okay, Spencer, log in. I thought maybe I had to send some of my friends, from Birmingham to go knock on his door.
Yeah. We still need to see his picture, but it definitely said he joined.
Yeah, we don't see it. But that fight, Ben, we both agree on this. It's going to be the biggest fight in the history of Great Britain. It's going to be one of the biggest heavyweight fights of all time. That fight can only take place in Wembley Stadium.
Sure. We got Spencer yet?
Yeah, how you doing, mate?
We don't see...
Yeah, there he is. There he is. That's Master Knowledge.
Spencer, how you doing, man?
Yeah, what are you saying, bro? You good?
Spencer, I was about to send some man from Tivoli Garden and Grant's Pen to go at your house and drag you out to do this interview.
Why? If you cannot do that, but all of them would have dead, my friend.
I guess this is the point on the last side left out.
It's good seeing you. We were talking about Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, arguably the biggest fight in the history of Great Britain. And we were saying that that fight needs to take place in Wembley Stadium. And if it doesn't, you guys should not let Eddie Hearn back into the country. What are your thoughts?
No. My thoughts are they are prize fighters, and the essence of prize is to earn as much money as possible. And wherever it is held, it doesn't make a difference to me, because I'm going to be in my house watching it, and Ben's going to be watching it on crack screens. So it don't make no difference to where the fight is. To tell you, to me, being honest, because of how the world is right now with this global pandemic, if that fight was happening in Saudi Arabia, so be it. If it was happening in Brunei, they happened there. If it was happening in Dubai, if it was happening in China, Pakistan, wherever it was happening, they happened there because right now it's the magnitude of the fight and the fact that we could bear witness of watching the fight. So when people say, "Oh, it has to happen in Great Britain," why does it have to happen in Great Britain? It's not. It doesn't.
Spencer, if you move Reggae Sunsplash away from Jamaica,
right,
we're gonna have a problem.
Right, but reggae Sunsplash is reggae, and the authenticity of reggae where it came from Jamaica, right?
Yes.
The World Heavyweight Championship did not come from Great Britain.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
No,
we go back now,
This I'm ready for you now, Ben. Right?
Okay, you're going to go to John O'Sullivan and Jake Kilrain.
Exactly. Thank you. Told the words right in my mouth.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Let's not get
so, I believe sometimes there's a point where we look at money and we look at certain other factors. And this is one where I soundly believe this fight should take place in Great Britain. For the British fans, we have two gentlemen from your country who are competing in arguably one of the biggest heavyweight fights. And I don't want to see that fight in Saudi Arabia. I don't even want to see that fight in Las Vegas. I want to see it in England.
Why?
So 100 years from now, we can look back at history and be on the right side of history. Anthony Joshua and the UK fans, you guys have invested so much in both fighters that you guys need to see them at home.
But Spencer raised an interesting point. If the pandemic situation continues to affect our lives in every aspect, then it might not be as much of a blow as it would have been in normal times. He did raise a valid point there when he says the crazy time we're living in, it's almost like just get the fight on. I do understand that. But
and that's what I mean. I'm more interested in seeing the fight happening. I don't care where it happens.
Okay, since you might not be able to go to it anyway because
right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'll have more chance of getting in if the fight was in Saudi Arabia than if it was anywhere else. So I'm just keeping it 100 there, brother.
Well, Spencer, if it doesn't happen in Saudi Arabia, then the most logical place is, I hope it happens in Jamaica. I'm just joking.
Well, that's the thing. If it happened in Jamaica, I wouldn't go.
Oh, I'm going. But let's move right along here. Let's talk about recap. One of the biggest upsets. Some people say it's a big upset. I predicted it. Teofimo Lopez beating Vasily Lomachenko
was not a big upset.
It wasn't.
Was not a big upset.
To Lomachenko, it was a highway robbery. But I predicted.
I know you did, because I read that on your page. I read it on your page. I know you predicted it, but it wasn't a big upset.
Talk to me about that fight. How you
keep it 100. I'm going to keep it 100. I thought it was a bit too early for Teofimo Lopez.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the fight was going to be too early for Teofimo Lopez. Kind of similar to when Floyd fought Canelo. I thought it was too early for you to be mixing up with that, right? But then on the reels, especially after and how I've met Vasily Lomachenko quite a few times. He's a really cool guy. When I was on my show on Sky Sports, I was with him loads of times. We were talking. I had to apologize to him because I really thought that Nicholas Walter was going to beat him and all that.
Yeah,
I can be real, right?
So did I.
Yeah, I thought Nicholas.
You both would have thought so because he's a Jamaican as well.
Well, you know how it goes, right?
Yeah.
I thought Nicholas Walter was going to go there and just clap him over, right?
Tommy Hearns.
Right, that's what I thought. But Nicholas Walters quit. So from then I said, right, Lomachenko's a bad boy. But then when I'm looking at certain things, loads of the times when he's fought, he's had things in his favor. You know what I mean? Let's drag up Regondo up 2 weights and fight.
You're talking about the current WBA bantamweight champ who moved up 2 weight classes.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's get a fight with Gary Russell Jr., knowing that Gary Russell Jr. had trouble to cut the weight, knowing that at that time Gary Russell Jr. was ill. Yeah, let's get that fight. So there has been fights in his favor, right? You just watch. So when I'm watching Lomachenko, don't get twisted. I think Lomachenko is very, very good. But when everyone's gassing him up like he's he's the
greatest
thing to... Nah, that's when I started disliking.
Do you remember what Matthew Macklin said, commentating on the Campbell Lomachenko fight for Sky, when he said, people talk about Ray Robinson, but he might be better than that. I mean, that is that's cheerleading at its best, right?
Listen. You know what? I like Matthew, but shut up, man. Come on. Right? And the thing about
Spencer, I say people spoke about Lomachenko like he was Jesus in boxing gloves.
Yeah. Bruh, I'm telling you, it was turning water into wine and walking on water at the same time. So but when you're used to seeing great fighters do stuff, unfortunately, we're living in where they don't get to see a smidgen of greatness now because they don't understand or they don't
starved of it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So anything that comes up, hey, he's got to be great. Oh, he's only done this. No. And the thing about it is this: Lomachenko got beat fair and square.
And I thought it was astonishingly easy to nullify. I thought Lopez did a strikingly easy job of nullifying his assets on the particular night. He said you just got to pressure him and you've got to stick on him and feint. And he kind of did that.
And I've been going back and forth with people, and I'm not trying to discredit Lomachenko. He's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. I don't understand why you stay around after you win a gold medal in a country where you can turn professional and hang around until you're 24 years old. Don't understand it. I understand why the Cubans could leave, but I look at Lomachenko and I say this to people: he's a very good fighter, but I could not have seen Sugar Ray Robinson or Sugar Ray Leonard or Tommy Hearns losing to a fighter who only has 15 fights. I rest my case.
I have no more to say, right?
That's it.
I have no more to say. And not only that, I don't care what fighter you want to think about. I couldn't see Floyd Mayweather in his second pro fight losing to someone like Salido.
Right.
I don't care what version of Floyd Mayweather that you took, losing to Salido. I rest my case. So, and he's been gassed up. He's been gassed up on another level. And now the gas has reached him, like they can't capitalize on the gas because regardless how they're trying to push him, and Bob Arum and Top Rank trying to push him, no one's not interested in it.
But I don't. Rigondeaux beats Nonito Donaire, who people had as pound for pound the number 3 best fighter at the time. Totally outclassed him, and no one said anything about.
Yeah, come on, you know, bro.
He's Cuban and he's dark skinned Cuban. A master boxer. He said, "How do I market a master boxer?" Like it was some kind of great Krypton factor puzzle.
Yeah.
After Rigondeaux beat him, then he suddenly thinks, "Well, what he meant to say is, how do you market a little black master boxer from Cuba who doesn't speak English?"
Exactly.
But let's move on. Lomachenko lost. It's sour grapes. He's saying that the judges were paid off, and
please,
he's making some disparaging remarks.
Don't give that no energy. Forget him. I ain't got time for him. He's a little bitch.
So, so let's move on. The next big fight. We know Terence Crawford stopped my man Kell Brook, who was a huge Kell Brook fan, and we know that Errol Spence beat Danny Garcia. You know, both champions fought once in 2020. Let's talk about the big fight we need to see. Errol Spence versus Bud Crawford.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of people seem to be favouring Spence, that I've noticed, because he's a naturally bigger guy and because they were quite surprised that he appears to have gotten away with that death crash with the 17 somersaults in the Lamborghini and all the rest of it. But I still favour Crawford because I just think he has a little more when it comes down to it. I think he will. I don't think he'll be out-muscled by Spence. I think he's just a little bit more special than Errol Spence, and I back him to win. I think he's very, very intelligent in there, and I'll be favouring Crawford. Spence?
I've been favouring Crawford for a hot minute, right? I have been. But you know what? I'm not rightly sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been favouring for years. I've been favouring Crawford. Right? When we was first speaking about this fight 2.5 years ago, I was favouring Crawford to win that fight because I think he got the superior boxing skills. But there's something about Errol Spence and the toughness of Errol Spence and how he grinds you down that, you know what, it's a fight in the balance. And that's the truth. And Errol
that's why you want to see it.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. And Errol Spence is very, very strong. So there's days I wake up and I'm completely convinced that Terence Crawford would be Errol Spence. But, you know what I mean, what was the fight they had with War Machine, right? He got floored in that fight, Terence Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I've seen Gamboa shook him up a little piece. So, you know what? I'm not too rightly sure. I'm not going to keep it 100 and see the fight.
And that's what makes it so intriguing, Spencer and Ben. You know, you're not sure. That's why that fight has to be made in 2021. And I don't want to hear A side, B side. You know, Spencer saying I'm the A side. And I said this yesterday. If you put Spencer's picture and Crawford's picture on a milk carton and you take it outside, I don't know if 2 out of 10 people would recognize either fighter. So it's not A. I see that as 50-50.
Exactly. And that's how I see it as well.
Yes, and it's a great matchup. You know, Spence does a lot of things great. So does Crawford. One thing I love about Crawford, if I'm going at midnight to a bad neighborhood, I'm taking Terence Crawford with me.
Yeah.
I'm taking Crawford.
Yeah.
So
he's a pretty serious guy.
Yes.
I've spoken to him quite a few times. And it's because Zab Judah hooked it up. So I had a conversation with him via Zab Judah. So I got props. My guy Zab Judah. Like I said, I rate Terence Crawford. I think he's excellent. And not only that, I remember Dave Caldwell, and he had Ryan Robles up against Canelo. And I said to him, who's the best fighter that you've seen in person? And I think they would have said Canelo, and he didn't. He said it was Terence Crawford. He said Terence Crawford was incredible. Done things that we was like, wow. And certain times, maybe it's not even transmitted properly on our TV screen. We're seeing slights of the magic, but when you see him in person, you know you're looking at somebody very, very special.
Yes.
Yeah,
very
I think he's a little bit like Marvin Hagler in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, Ben, that's a great comparison. Yeah. He's a smaller version of Marvin Hagler. The mindset, how he fights.
Yeah, that's ambidextrous.
He's just a mean guy.
Yeah.
If I'm going to the worst neighborhood in Jamaica at midnight, I'm taking Terence Crawford with me.
Yeah,
just a tough guy, man.
I'm taking my Glock. That's what I'm taking.
Let's move on. Let's talk about one fighter. Not too many people mentioned, my Cuban brother, Yordenis Ugas. You know the WBA has 50 million titles. He's a WBA regular champion. Manny Pacquiao. I don't understand. Let's not discuss it, but no one wants to fight Yordenis Ugas.
He looked a little bit unlucky against Sean Porter, as you said, you know. And Ugas is just one of them guys. He's unfashionable. He's not a big draw. He approximates that classic no-go zone of high risk, low reward, basically.
Yeah. He's one of those guys who are stuck on a rock and a hard place. So
what did Reg Gutteridge call them, Spence?
Pardon me?
What did Reg Gutteridge call them kind of guys?
What, in the Who Needs Him Club?
Yeah, the chairman of the Who Needs Him Club.
Yeah, and he definitely is. He's a good fighter, though. He's a very good fighter. But unfortunately, he ain't got... You have to have something. Especially if you're a Cuban fighter, you got to have something. Apart from having Instagram pretty girl with a big bum. You got to have something else to bring to the table.
But I would love to see him fight either Spence or Crawford. I would love to see those fights.
Yeah, but he ain't going to get that shot. You know he's not going to get that shot. Because
it's more for business now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the prospects. One guy that I'm high on in the welterweight division, and people say, well, George, it's because he's from Philadelphia. No. Jerron Boots Ennis. 25 of those. Spencer, give me your thoughts. Man.
I'm going to tell you the truth. Ben knows I had a fighter called Larry Condile.
Yes.
And he reminds me a lot of Larry. I'm going to send you over one of these fights, George, and you'll see. He reminds me a lot of Larry Condile. but he's more spiteful and he can dig. I rate the kid. He's a good kid. He's father right now because he had two brothers at box, but they weren't really nothing.
No. One of them, B. Gabe Rosado, was ranked. Pooh Anderson was the ranked junior middleweight, and the other one was ranked.
Did they?
They didn't fight for a title.
That's what I mean. My apologies, because I'm trying to disrespect nobody. But yeah, so they didn't get looked after.
And his dad was a professional fighter.
Yeah, I know. So, like I'm saying, I rate what they're doing right now. I rate him as a fighter. I think he's very, very good. I was trying to holler him to get him on my podcast. I think he's good. If you got a contact, man, tell him I'd love to talk to him.
That reminds me.
Spencer, I've known him since he was 2 years old.
Yeah.
I just spoke to his dad. I've been watching him since he was a little guy in the gym. But if you really want to do a podcast with him, I'll reach out to his father and
reach out. I'd love to speak to him.
And that reminds me, George.
Who's he signed to now? Is he signed to Showtime?
Yes, he signed to Showtime.
That reminds me, when Spencer talks about having him on the podcast,
okay.
Spencer does the podcast, The Fight Is Right, with no less than Tunde Ajayi. And I know you wanted to talk about Tunde and Andy Yard.
Yes, Tunde Ajayi. Can I, Spencer? Now, I don't mean to disparage any trainer, but I want to know what type of weed Tunde Ajayi was smoking when he decided, if this is true, when he decided that Anthony Yard shouldn't spar for his fight with Kovalev. Is that a fact or just something?
It's not true.
Put out there?
It's not true. It's not. No,
it's not true.
He said it to make headlines. It's not true at all. No.
Okay. So he
not
sparred.
At all. Not true at all.
Okay, so he did spar during training camp.
Of course he was. Tunde doing an flex. His name flex Danny Jackson. Who's sparring with? And Tunde said, "Well, I'm his best sparring partner." Meaning, like, and seeing as you're of Jamaican descent, George, you know, we grew up on karate show and kung fu movie, martial arts films, right, Ben? And that we grew up on. So when we watch kung fu movie, you know, the kung fu movie, them you have to your sparring partner, your master, your teacher. So that's what he was saying. He was actually joking. But it just stuck, and the thing about it is, Tunde's very smart on doing things, or to say controversial things deliberately, because he knows he's going to make headlines, and he understands that the more people talking about him, the more energy they're giving him, and that's what's happening. So that's not true. So there's.
So I apologize to Tunde.
All right. Next question.
How can you not spar when you're getting ready to fight for a title?
He does spar. So anyway, George, next question.
Okay, good. So Tunde, my apologies, my brother. Let's talk about another prospect that I really like. Chris Primetime Colbert, interim WBA junior lightweight champ. I like that kid.
Nah, I rate Christian. Have you seen him, Ben? This guy's bad, man. He's bad. He's got hands. He's got hands.
What are we talking about? Chris Congo?
Yeah, Colbert.
Oh, no. That's Chris
Colbert from New York
City. He's an American guy.
Yeah, he's American.
Yeah, I seen one fight. Yeah.
Good fighter. Now, let's talk about the boogeyman Inoue in the bantamweight division.
Well, he's a great fighter, you know. I mean, I think that he is a serious rival for Canelo's status as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. It's just that Canelo's bigger and much more famous, much more kind of glamorous. But I don't know if he's definitely a better fighter than Noah Inoue at all.
Inoue, yeah.
I mean, he is. He reminds me of Donald Curry, but like a more devastating puncher at his weight, maybe. Or I mean, Curry could seriously bang a welterweight too, but I really rate Inoue, yeah. And I think isn't it made for him to fight? Now we're talking. He's got nothing on the horizon as far as I know.
But I'm looking at anyway. I look at the body of work. I can't put that franchise tag on somebody with only 20 fights. You get my point? He only has 20 fights. Yeah. Canelo, we've seen a great body work on Canelo. We look at Terence Crawford with 35 fights or whatever. And I believe Terence Crawford is the best pound for pound, or we can argue Canelo.
Nah, it's Canelo, bro. Canelo's the best pound for pound fighter.
Well, on resume, Spence, or on just capabilities?
Resume and capabilities.
Yeah.
The fact that Canelo moved up to light heavyweight and beat the boogeyman, I will concede that position with you, Spencer and Ben.
Thank you.
Because he did beat Kovalev.
For all the greatness of Terence Crawford, and don't get twisted, Terence Crawford is fantastic, right?
Yes.
He ain't got them names on his resume.
That's where Canelo scores over him. That's why he's probably got the more kind of legitimate claim to. I mean, it's a mythical tag anyway, the pound for pound best in the world. Yeah. But the thing that firms up Canelo's status thereas is the fact that he does have that body of work. Whereas guy like Crawford, and to a lesser, also Inoue has won a lot of titles in different weight divisions. You know, he's done a lot in that 20 fights, but he still has a relative, brevity of experience.
Gentlemen, I will concede. You've made a compelling argument for Canelo. It's logical, so we'll give Canelo's best pound for pound. In a way, you know who I would like to see him fight, and people say, well, it doesn't make any sense. He has the WBA championship. Why not fight Rigondeaux, who's 40 years old?
Inoue, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that would be an intriguing fight in itself because he wouldn't find Rigo so easy to hit for a start. So it's an interesting fight. I mean, obviously, Inoue was in a classic with Donaire back in 2019, and while it was...
Donaire is 150 years old, Ben.
I know, and this is the thing. While it was a fantastic fight, it was somewhat demystifying to that monster kind of aura at the same time. Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to match him up with Rigondeaux. I don't think he beats Rigondeaux.
No.
You don't?
No.
I would back him.
No.
I'd back him. What was Rigondeaux? Rigondeaux ain't done nothing in ages now, man. Seriously.
That's because nobody wants to fight him.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not going to be in good stead for him to go in there with a guy like this who's got good work. I understand
the business, but I'm saying you have a guy in your division with the world title. Unify the belts. We understand it's a business. Unify the belts.
All right.
But I think the thing with Rigondeaux is that he wasn't the hottest property in boxing to start with. And I think he really commercially killed himself with that surrender against Lomachenko in a fight that the diehards were saying was going to be boxing porn, and they were salivating over it. I think he hasn't been forgiven for that. But
man, can I say something, Ben? And just from me viewing it, he was so good that nobody wanted to fight him. What he did to Donaire, he was so good for him to beat the number 3 pound for pound so easily. Nobody wanted to fight him, and the only way he could get a fight was to move up 2 weight divisions to fight Lomachenko.
I also am aware of the argument.
To have your own promoter, from what I've heard, say, he's boring. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Well, Aram said it about Crawford almost too, right? He said, when we say, will he renew the contract? Do we want it? Do we want him back? He said, you know what I mean? He said, because I'm not going to be losing money over it, that's for sure. So he kind of mugged Crawford off like that in the same way.
I don't. Now we understand why Oscar left and Floyd left.
Yeah.
And I believe Crawford will leave.
I think pretty much there's no love lost at this point. When the promoter basically said he doesn't want you and you couldn't draw flies,
And it always hurts me when a guy in a suit, and we know Bob Arum is an attorney, I've never bust a grape in a fruit fight, doesn't know a left hook from a fish hook, and you're trying to disparage somebody who's put their life out there. We understand it's a business, but for him to say that about Terence Crawford, it's just mean-spirited.
There's also people who argue, you're the promoter. If he's not a big enough attraction, that's your damn fault. He's certainly producing the goods where it counts in the ring. You can't criticize him for what he does in the office. What are you doing in the office?
But that's Arum. I would love to see Arum get in there with Crawford for one round. And see, it's easy to jump bad or make disparaging remarks behind the desk. But Bob Arum has never gotten in a fight from all his kindergarten records. He probably got beat up in kindergarten.
No doubt at all.
So we have 4 minutes left, gentlemen. I know we have to do this another time, but
For sure.
anyone, let's talk about the great British prospects. Can you guys give me the top 3?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because of this COVID thing. It's arrested the development of some of these guys, and it's taken some of that sort of up and coming structure away.
But Ben, who gives you the oh my God factor? You've seen a fight in England, and you go, oh my God. I'm not sure
anybody does. I mean, I'm not convinced by Josh Kelly, who had a lot of noise around him for a while. What are you saying, Spencer? When people talk about the best 3 prospects in the UK, can we define that as under 15 fights right now? Yes?
Yeah, how many fights has Chris Congo had?
Chris Congo, round about there. It's not too far away from it.
Who's the number 1?
I'm sorry, Jack Bateson. I think he's a very, very good fighter. Jack Bateson, what's he doing? Is he doing a super bantamweight? Very good kid, signed to MTK Global as well. He's very, very skilled. I would say them and Joe. How many Joe Cordine had? Because he's gonna blow, you know. I think he's gonna do. I love watching.
I think he's under 15 fights right now. I believe he's under that.
And Joe Cordine is another guy that you need to be looking at to think. Yep, he's gonna go do some stuff as well. Joe Cordine.
How many fights has Boatsi had?
Well, then Boatsi's the top contender then, under 15 fights.
Yeah.
Boatsi, I like that guy a lot.
Yeah, Boatsi. Yeah, I think Boatsi's on 13 or 14 now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's under 15 fights.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I like him. He's a machine, man.
For sure.
Good kid, really nice kid as well.
Very humble and can punch.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he looks like an old school heavyweight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
That means courage. Just for the sake of a cross Atlantic translation, that means courage, George.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we call it bottle, heart, guts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let's not forget one of my favorite fighters. I saw her fight live in Philadelphia. Katie Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, she's a very good fighter for sure. I think she has really spearheaded the female.
She's excellent.
Revolution alongside Eddie Hearn. Eddie and Katie have worked together well, and they put the profile of women's boxing right up there.
They certainly have.
You see, you got girls like Shannon Courtney coming through who are getting ink now.
Right.
You know, or it's not really ink anymore, is it, Spence? It's more like clicks, hits. That's the
Savannah Marshall was very good.
Savannah Marshall was a good fighter.
Very good fighter.
You know, and yet Clarissa Shields has stepped over to some kind of MMA type.
Oh, we have to set up another meeting because I think we have a minute left just to discuss that.
Okay.
I'm not. It's so difficult to see fighters, boxers switch over to other sports or vice versa. Doesn't translate well, but we will see. But gentlemen, I think we have a couple minutes left. Hopefully we can do another wrap-up show. Spencer, thank you. I know you're truly Jamaican, Spencer, since you showed up 30 minutes late.
Yeah.
That's a trademark.
No, it's because it's Christmas Day.
No, I'm just joking, man. It's great to have you.
87 years old.
I try to break the Jamaican stereotype. Chris Tony keeps me on board, so I show up a minute early these days.
Congratulations, bro.
But thank you, Spencer. It's been a pleasure, man. You gotta do this again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, brother. Take care. God bless.
God bless you. Take care.
Okay, politician, come down. When the police come, you're on. They want to shoot you down with gun. Bread in the oven, bacon. Here come the rude boy Jamaican. Bread in the oven, bacon. Here come the rude boy Jamaican. I met a rich Yankee. She couldn't do the reggae skank.